What's up, folks? Sean, the Average Angler here, and I was getting ready for a tournament, and it got me thinking about this technique that is so versatile. And honestly, I don't like fishing it a whole lot. That's going to have to change, because this is another one of those techniques that will always catch a fish, and fish of all sizes. And it could be one of the most versatile techniques that we have. It works from the bank, it works from docks, it works from a boat, it works from a kayak. And guys that fish it a lot tend to do really, really well. Cheers, it's coffee time, it's early. I think it is 6:27. All right, and that technique is a drop shot as I put my tip into the ceiling. And in this case, this is a spear point with a little drop shot weight. And you'll see I leave a tag end. That allows me to adjust up or down. Then once I figure out where the fish want it, I can snip it off. But this is a nosed hook. And these come in different sizes. You can get them to Texas rig for weedless presentations in that too. But in the essence of keeping the video to a reasonable amount of time, I'm just going to show you one technique. Okay, this is a robo worm. And for those of you that have not tried the pink worm, this is Morning Dawn with red flake. It's a 6-inch fat. Most of the time that's what I use around here. If I'm on a spotted bass lake, you got to figure out if they want the 6 or the 4.5. But you'll see how I rigged that there. And this allows the worm a lot of free action in the water, okay? So this is going to give it the most action. Texas rigging it will calm it down a little bit. This hook is too small for a Texas rig, okay? This is my nose hook rig. And there you'll see how it's rigged, okay? Weight, this is a tungsten weight, pretty light, fishing shallower. If you're going to be fishing deeper, you can put on a bigger and bigger weight. And then they have the cylinder type weights. Now, the line I'm using on this is 6 to 8 pound test. This is 8. You can go down to 6 depending on your water clarity and if they're really line sensitive and that. And then it goes to braid. Okay, I got it tied to braid there. This is a fairly long leader, maybe 12 to 14 foot or so. This is a 7-foot medium light Finesse drop shot rod. Don't know if that's going to focus there or not. It's a Daiwa Tatula, medium light. Okay, it's got a lot of tip, and when it gets down the rod, it's got some good backbone there. That is a 2500 Daiwa Fuego reel. Okay, depending on brand, you can go 2500 to 3000. Typically, the bigger spool, the better gear ratio you're going to get faster. But also, the drag washers tend to be bigger, so you can get a smoother drag. You don't need to go out and buy anything new, but if you're buying for the technique, I will be the first to tell you that I am in the process of changing my reels over to 3000 series reels, okay? And then you'll see down here, the hook keeper, I just tucked the weight in there. Okay, if you have those open type hook keepers, you can just tuck the weight in. And that drag is a wee bit tight. All right, now in the beginning of this, I was telling you how versatile this rig is. Okay, so Finesse presentations, you can go Texas, you can go nose hook, you can change the weights, you can change the heights. Get it higher up in the water column. I think the highest I've ever gone is about 2.5 feet. That's because the fish were up a little higher in the water column. Now, the flip side of that would be the Bubba shot. And you will see I've got a 4/0 owner beast hook on there, EWG, and this is a 3/4 ounce Miller tungsten punch weight. Now, to tie this on, what I do, and I'm sure there's somebody who's got a better method, but this works. So the Miller tungsten weight, you'll see, comes through the center and then kind of out the side in this little notch there. And all I do is run it through a swivel and then tie it on. It's really hard to see because it folds the things over, but I tie it on to the back side of the swivel, and then it just pulls it up into the knot, or into that notch. What it does is it protects my knot, right? So the weight is not hitting my knot, which could fatigue the line. Then you end up losing your weight. Now, the nice thing about the Miller weight, as you can see, is it's really pointed. That helps you get through weeds easier with that point. It's just going to direct and pull through. Now, if you needed like a 1 ounce typical punch type weight, you can get away with a 3/4 most of the time. Now, that's going to depend on the bait you pick. The one I have here in front of me, probably going to slow that fall down some. Okay, and in this case, I've grabbed a X-Zone Adrenaline Craw, and I like the X-Zone baits for the Bubba shot, punch shot, whatever you want to call it, because they float really well. And then you're just gonna do your typical old Texas rig, and then I'm gonna tell you what the problem with this bait is if it's really thick, heavy weeds. But there's a lot of choices, okay? And in this case, I have this rigged for a big bait with that hook, right? You can go down to a smaller hook and use a smaller bait. But the X-Zone stuff floats really well. So this is gonna float that up, and I'm gonna be able to basically punch with a drop shot. Not something those fish see every day. But this is a very popular rig with pros, and they don't talk about it. Very effective way to present your bait and catch them in the deep weeds. If they're used to seeing a bait like a typical punch, and this is 20-pound test, it's on a 7'6" 4-power flipping stick, okay? I go a little bit softer on the Bubba shot than I normally would with a punch rig, where I would be using a 5-power. Still use 20-pound test. Put my rod glove over my rod there. All right, so we've talked about the X-Zone. We've talked about the 6-inch Robo. You could Bubba shot the 6-inch Robo. You just use a different hook. Now, some other baits here. I've got the Noki. Here you see what it looks like, kind of like a miniature brush hog. Now the brush hog, by the way, is a great bait for Bubba shotting because it's narrow, it pulls through really well. This bait would be more of a nose hook. You can see how small it is. So you could nose hook this little creature bait on the Finesse rig. Going even smaller, the Noki Yabby These are JDM baits, folks. This one is really tiny. Who knows, maybe if you're creek fishing or something, kind of the profile and size of although it's a craw, it could be considered a Helgamite by size and profile. Now other baits, and this is probably one of the more popular ones that I've used on a Bubba shot or a Finesse, is a smallie beaver. Now you can use a smallie beaver, you can use a regular beaver, you can even use a double wide beaver. The brush hog, the power hog, the baby brush hog, the mid-sized brush hog, all those baits work really well for the power shot. The brush hog, because of the cylindrical shape of the bait, will tend to pull through grass much easier than, say, the X Zone, which has this wide body. Now, when it gets to the claws will come through pretty well because they'll just collapse, right? They'll just collapse and pull through, but you still have this blunt end that's squared off that you need to get started. And a lot of times you can just shake it a little bit and it'll make its way and pull through. But you still have the wide body here. Whereas with the brush hog, it's rounder and cylindrical and slides through grass much easier. So that is the drop shot and the power shot. And remember, you can always change the distance from the bait to the bottom. You can get it down as low as 4 inches. You can go as high as 2.5. A lot of times if they're in the weeds, there's a canopy, and once you get through it, sometimes those fish hang out way up near the top. That's something you need to figure out by experimenting. I will typically start somewhere around 1 foot to 6 inches, depending on where I'm at. I kind of know where they tend to hang out. And if the canopy's really high, you might want to raise it up. If the canopy's really dense down towards the bottom and the pockets open at the bottom like that, then you want to shrink it down. Same thing goes with your Finesse rig. You got to figure out where the fish are positioned. If they're up off the bottom a little bit, you want to keep the bait just above them. Fish tend to like to eat up. Not always. They do eat jigs, don't forget that, but I'm just saying most of the time fish like to eat up. Sean, the average angler, thanks for watching. We're here to teach you, help you catch more fish, and hopefully I get to catch more fish too. Let me know how it's working out for you. Thanks for watching.